I've always been a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. Ghosts, demons, and all things supernatural were just stories to me, meant to entertain or scare. That was until I stumbled upon something that shattered my disbelief and left me questioning the very fabric of reality. It all started innocently enough, with a group of friends and a seemingly harmless experiment that would change our lives forever. It was a cold, misty October evening when my friends and I gathered in my dimly lit basement. The smell of dampness hung in the air, and the flickering candles added an eerie ambience to our surroundings. We'd all heard the stories about the old abandoned mansion at the edge of town, the one they called the House of Hollow Eyes. Legend had it that it was cursed and those who entered would never leave. Among us was Sarah, a tall, raven-haired beauty who had a fascination with the supernatural. She had heard about the house's dark history and was convinced that we could uncover its secrets. Then there was Mike, the daredevil of the group, who rarely turned down a challenge. And finally, there was me, the skeptic, who thought this whole thing was a bunch of nonsense. Sarah laid out her plan on the worn wooden table, her eyes gleaming with excitement. She had researched the house extensively and discovered that it was once owned by a reclusive occultist named Elias Blackwood. He had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a trail of sinister tales. According to Sarah, we were going to spend the night in the mansion, armed with cameras, voice recorders, and our wits. We'd document any unusual occurrences and prove once and for all whether the legends were true. I agreed to join in, mostly to humor Sarah, but deep down, I was convinced nothing would happen. As we approached the mansion that night, the oppressive atmosphere was palpable. The moon cast an eerie glow on the decaying facade, and the windows seemed like hollow eyes, watching our every move. The wind whispered through the overgrown trees, creating an unsettling symphony of rustling leaves. We entered the mansion cautiously, our footsteps echoing in the silence. The interior was just as I'd imagined: rotting wallpaper, crumbling plaster, and an overwhelming sense of decay. Sarah led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as we ventured deeper into the house. Mike followed closely behind, cracking jokes to hide his nerves, while I clung to my skepticism. The first few hours were uneventful. We explored the dilapidated rooms, taking pictures and recording audio. Every creak of the floorboards and howl of the wind sent shivers down my spine, but I attributed it all to the old, decaying house. It was just my overactive imagination playing tricks on me, I thought. But as the night wore on, things began to change. Whispers echoed in the shadows, barely audible but undeniably there. I dismissed them as the wind, even though it seemed impossible for the wind to form coherent words. Sarah was the first to notice, her face pale as she played back the recordings on her device. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice trembling. It was a faint, chilling voice that seemed to say, "Beware the ice." Mike chuckled nervously. "Come on, Sarah, it's probably just some prankster messing with us." We continued our exploration, but the whispers persisted, growing louder and more insistent. I couldn't deny it any longer. Something was wrong with this place. I began to feel a growing unease, like we were being watched by unseen eyes. As we entered a grand hall, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The temperature dropped, and a spectral figure materialized before us. It was a tall, gaunt man dressed in tattered robes, his eyes hollow and devoid of life. He reached out towards us, his fingers skeletal and elongated, and let out a blood-curdling scream. We screamed in terror and fled, racing through the house's labyrinthine corridors. The mansion seemed to twist and change around us, leading us in circles. Every room we entered was different from the last, as if the very architecture of the house was mocking us. I glanced at my friends, their faces contorted with fear. We had to find a way out of this nightmare, but the house had other plans. It toyed with us, leading us down endless hallways that seemed to stretch into eternity. Shadows danced in the corners of our vision, and disembodied voices whispered chilling threats. We stumbled upon a room that seemed to be the heart of the mansion's malevolence. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, and a massive ornate mirror dominated one side of the room. The mirror's surface was dark and reflective, and as we approached, we saw our own terrified faces staring back at us. But something was horribly wrong. Our reflections were grinning with malevolent glee. With trembling hands, Sarah reached out to touch the mirror, and her reflection reached out to meet her. Their fingers touched, and Sarah let out a gut-wrenching scream as her reflection dragged her into the mirror's depths. Psyche and I watched in horror as she disappeared, leaving nothing but an echoing scream behind. We had no choice but to flee, leaving the cursed mansion behind us. We never spoke of that night again, but the memory of the hollow eyes haunted our dreams. Mike and I were forever changed by our encounter, scarred by the knowledge that the supernatural was all too real. I've since become a believer, haunted by the memory of that night. The House of Hollow Eyes taught me that there are forces beyond our comprehension, lurking in the shadows, waiting to reveal themselves to those who dare to seek them out. The mirror still hangs in that accursed room as a portal to a realm of darkness and despair. And as for Sarah, she remains trapped in that twisted reflection, a warning to all who would dare to enter the House of Hollow Eyes.